Food for thought. Rupert and Donovan were sitting at their kitchen table, full of groceries that they got from the store. Rupert looks at Donovan and asks him, "You know what these are, right?" Donovan looks around and says, "Are they groceries we got from the store?" Rupert nods and says, "Yes, but also aids to help our understanding of the world." Donovan looks skeptical and says, "How will some food teach me about the world?" Rupert winks and interjects, "I'm so glad you asked." He then pulls out a plethora of fruits and skewers from the bags, puts them on the table to place in front of Donovan to cut. Also, he goes into the cabinet next to him and pulls out some fruit knives, made for children for both of them to cut. Donovan looks bored and says, "Why do we need to use these dull knives? Wouldn't the sharp ones be better?" Rupert keeps looking down at his fruit and speaks up, "So you don't cut your fingers from the hundreds of times you missed the fruit. That's why." Donovan is about to say something, but notices his fingers have little indentations where he had missed the fruit. This made him think he needs to watch what he was doing better and thankful for Rupert looking out for him. They continued cutting the fruits that Rupert chose and ended up with 6 groups of slices, laying them close to the skewers to be used. Rupert announces, "This will be a practice in learning how the world connects in interesting ways." Donovan looks suspicious and asks, "How are you going to make fruit so thought-provoking?" Rupert points at the fruit slices and starts putting them on a skewer while saying, "You only see more foodstuffs, but I see each one as a brick for the foundation of your future." Donovan rolls his eyes and says, "Always so dramatic. Please regale me with your exciting demonstration." Rupert takes a little bow and exclaims, "As you wish. It is now a time to entertain Etchidu on the confounding connections of this world." Rupert takes up a skewer and points to the fruit closest to him. "What is this fruit and where is it from?" Donovan looked at the fruit, noting it was yellow and comprised of 5 pieces extending from the center. Donovan says, "I'm having a hard time with both. It's not really coming up." Rupert looks at him and asks him, "What's your favorite movie and part from it?" Donovan rubs his chin and thinks to himself about the question. Immediately he remembers and says, "It's Star Sentry, and the part where he's fighting his archenemy in a jungle." Rupert nods and says, "What is another name for jungle and why do you like it so much?" Donovan smiles and says, the word can also be tropics and found in Southeast Asia, inspired by the creatures." Rupert smiles and says, "Correct. You use context clues and memories to form the correct answer." Donovan scratches his head and asks, "So you gave me the question to start my thinking and then use another one to help answer the first one?" Rupert claps and says, "That is exactly correct. It's one of the key foundations of the paradox of learning." Donovan rubs his head and asks, "What is the cornerstone of this weird experiment?" Rupert leans forward. "It is thus. Answers don't come out of anywhere, and you need to reverse engineer a few steps to get to an answer." Donovan nods and says, "I was going back to the answer from what you knew about me and my favorite movie. You took what you knew about me and helped me to answer the question." Rupert smiles and says, "That's true. And now we move on to the real experiment. What are the names of the fruit that we cut into sixes?" Donovan looks at them and thinks about the ones he sees and calls the names of all of them. Donovan looks confident and states, "I can name these fruits, and here's the list: plum, elderberry, mango, date, apple, and starfruit." Rupert nods and quips in with, "This is correct. That is correct, and we will use them to be the stepping stones to further your knowledge." This prompts to put the fruits on a skewer in specific order, and he asks, "What is the first letter of each of these fruits on the skewer in order?" Donovan looks down and says, "The order is PEDMAS." Rupert nods and says, "What do you call a word that when each letter in a word means a word of itself?" Donovan scratches his head and says, "I think it's called an acronym, which you gave the definition of." Rupert nods and says, "They work for mnemonics and to turn a list into a more intuitive form for learning." Donovan shakes his head and asks, "Okay, you lost me at mnemonic because I never heard of them." Rupert looks calm and says, "It's an aid to help your memory and helps you learn things in a simple way to help the brain grab new ideas." Donovan nods in understanding and thinks, "That's good and all, but what is the point of PEDMOS?" Rupert winks and says, "It is a mnemonic as an acronym for the function of basic algebra. Parentheses, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction." Also, rules well saying, "The point of these little tricks are here to help deepen and expand your understanding of anything you want to understand the bigger picture. They are like pieces of a big puzzle that you slowly put together." Donovan looks like he's thinking and asks, "Oh, okay. How will it relate to the bigger picture of this fruit experiment?" Rupert sighs and says, "Well, tomatoes in the fridge is a fruit, but would you put it in a fruit salad?" Donovan wrinkles his nose and says, "No, just because tomatoes are fruit doesn't mean it's sweet like the rest of the fruit in a fruit salad." Rupert's like, That's exactly what I needed to hear to make sure you saw the bigger picture.